This happened 6 months ago. I had just started my job as a park ranger. I wanted to escape the city after a rough breakup. I thought working in nature would help me heal. Cedar Hollow Park was beautiful. The tall pines were peaceful, and the river flowed quietly. During my nightly shifts, I often enjoyed the stillness. But that peace began to feel different. I remember my first night shift clearly. It was around midnight, and things were quiet. I was checking the perimeter when I heard a rustling in the bushes. I thought it was just a deer or maybe a raccoon. Then came something else. It sounded like whispers, soft but close, just beyond the trees. My heart started racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. As the weeks went by, I kept hearing those whispers. They became a regular part of my shifts. Sometimes, I heard them while I was at the ranger station. One night, I noticed the lanterns I had set up were flickering, even though there was no wind. It made me uneasy. I glanced around. Everything seemed still, but I felt something watching me. Then, one night, I saw something moving between the trees. It looked like a shadow, darting quickly from one trunk to another. I felt cold. I convinced myself it was just my imagination. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. After that, I began finding strange symbols carved into the bark of the trees. They didn't look like anything I had seen before. I felt a knot in my stomach. I wanted to ignore it, but I couldn't. The symbols made me think about the reports I'd heard about missing campers lately. The thought sent chills down my spine. Were these things connected? I started to wonder if I was losing it. I debated whether to mention the whispers and the lights to anyone. What would they think? Would they believe me? Maybe I wasn't cut out for this job. Then one night, while I stood outside the ranger station, I saw a figure. It was hard to make out, but it seemed to be watching me. My knees trembled. I tried to convince myself it was just another trick of the shadows. Suddenly, it whispered, "Jake." I stumbled back. The air felt thick around me. I blinked, and it was gone. I was alone, but the forest felt different now. I didn't think I'd ever stop thinking about it. I started questioning everything I knew. Every breath felt heavier. What did I get myself into? Then I saw something on the ground where the figure had stood. It was a small, shiny object. I bent down to pick it up. As I did, I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned around. Nobody was there. The forest was silent. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. But I knew things weren't right. The whispers still echoed in my mind, haunting me, and the night stretched on, cold and endless. I wasn't ready for what awaited me in the shadows. The following night was colder, almost bitter, and the air felt heavier as I prepared for my shift. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped inside the ranger station for a last moment of comfort. The flickering light bulb overhead cast long shadows on the walls. I wished I could peel away the unease clinging to me like a second skin. As I made my rounds, the familiar whispers brushed against my ears. I couldn't place the words, but they sounded almost urgent. I quickened my pace, conscious of every snap of a twig beneath my boots. I had to do something. I couldn't just brush it all aside, not anymore. I walked toward the area where I had found the shiny object. Picking it up had felt so wrong, but I needed to confront whatever was lurking out there. The shadows draped themselves over the trees like heavy blankets. The shapes warped in my mind, making me second-guess what I was seeing. I approached the spot again. My heartbeat drummed in my ears as I scanned the ground. That's when I saw it. A path, partially hidden beneath leaves and brush. Something in me urged me to follow it. Taking a deep breath, I stepped onto the trail. The further in I went, the more the whispers amplified. They were clearer now, like a desperate plea. "Jake, help us," they seemed to say. The chill intensified, but I pushed forward, curiosity mixing with fear. Then, a sound pierced the night. A low growl. My heart sank like a stone. I jerked my head toward the source, illuminating the area with my flashlight. The beam caught something glistening in the darkness. I stumbled back. It was more symbols, carved deeply into the ground. They looked like the ones on the trees, twisted and unsettling. Then everything went silent. The whispers vanished, leaving behind an eerie stillness. I stood frozen, grappling with a dizzying mix of fear and confusion. What was going on? I turned to retrace my steps, desperate to escape the suddenly suffocating silence. But then I heard a rustle behind me. I whipped around, flashlight flickering. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by the trees. The face was obscured, but I could make out the outline, a gaunt, ghostly shape, watching me. "Jake," it whispered again, clearer this time. I felt the words settle into me like ice. My name. Panic ignited in my chest. I took a step back, ready to run, when the figure raised a hand. In it was something familiar, the shiny object I had picked up. My breath hitched. That's when I realized. It was a mirror. I couldn't take my eyes off it, and yet I knew I had to act. Whatever connection I had with this place was deeper than I understood. And now, something wanted me to find out the truth. The figure stepped forward, and I stumbled backward, a scream rising in my throat. The dark woods began to close in on me, and I felt the chill seep into my bones. I turned sharply, my flashlight beam dancing across the trees, searching for an escape. The figure moved closer, dragging the heavy silence with it. I stumbled back, my mind racing. Why was it showing me the mirror? What did it want? "Jake," the figure said again, its voice barely a breath. I could see its hand trembling, the mirror glinting in the light. I had to know. With a reluctant step forward, I steadied my flashlight on the figure's face. The moment our eyes met, a surge of recognition pulsed through me. It was like looking into a distorted reflection of my own fears, a glimpse of something buried deep inside. "Who are you?" I croaked, struggling to keep my voice steady. The night felt heavy, like I was trapped in a dream where running didn't help. The figure hesitated, then pointed to the ground near my feet. I shifted my flashlight, revealing another set of symbols etched into the dirt. My breath caught. They looked similar to the ones I'd seen earlier, but these were arranged in a circle. The energy around them buzzed with an unsettling intensity. "Help us," it whispered again, a plea laced with desperation. But what did that even mean? Before I could respond, the mirror drew my focus again, its glass surface shimmering with an unnatural light. I took a step closer, compelled to reach out. The figure mirrored my movement, bringing the mirror closer, as if offering it to me. Just then, a sudden chill swept through the air, and the whispers returned, louder than before. "Jake, help us," echoed all around me, the voices blending together in a chaotic melody. Panic surged as I began to feel the weight of their anguish pressing on my chest. "Stop!" I shouted, but the noise only escalated. My flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows over the clearing, distorting the trees around me. I felt exposed and small, ensnared in a web of supernatural tension. The figure seemed to dim, blending back into the shadows. "Jake, please." I could sense its fear mixing with mine. I needed to act. Whatever this was, whatever connection I had, it was woven tightly into the night, into the woods. I took a breath and reached out, grasping the mirror. As soon as my fingers brushed against the cool surface, a jolt of energy shot through me. Visions erupted in my mind. Fragmented images of sorrow, loss, and haunting faces flooded my thoughts. Did I know them? The emotions were overwhelming. I gasped, pulling back instinctively, the mirror slipping from my grasp. It landed with a hollow thud, shattering the silence. The air turned electric, and the circle of symbols ignited with light. I watched in horror as shadows twisted around me, taking form, circling like predators. I had crossed a line, and now I was trapped. The ground trembled beneath me. I glanced back at the figure, only to find it gone. The fear in my gut deepened. I was alone, surrounded by darkness. Then, from the murky edges of the clearing, a figure emerged, tall and intimidating, a silhouette against the glowing symbols. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out. I felt my breath catch again, and this time there was no escaping. I had to uncover the truth, but the truth was staring back at me, and I had no idea who or what it was. The darkness closed in around me, the glow of the symbols casting strange shadows that danced like anxious spirits. My heart thundered in my chest as the tall figure stepped closer, its outline growing sharper against the light. I could feel its presence now, a dense weight in the air that made it hard to breathe. "Who are you?" I whispered again, my voice barely breaking through the charged silence. It didn't answer. Instead, it raised a hand, pointing toward the symbols beneath my feet. I followed its gesture, confusion mixing with fear. The air buzzed, electric, as if the symbols were alive, coaxing something deep within me. A knot formed in my stomach. That's when I noticed. The symbols weren't just scattered runes, they were animated, shifting, and pulsating. It felt like they were trying to communicate, weaving a message through the glimmering light. I squinted, trying to decipher them, but they distorted just out of reach, teasing me with understanding but never quite granting it. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from the shadows, breaking my concentration. A chill ran down my spine. Another presence? I turned slowly, heartsick at the thought of being surrounded. More figures began to materialize, their forms flickering in and out like the dying light of my flashlight. "Get back!" I shouted, fear driving my voice to a sharp edge. The figures paused, their movements halting as if my words were a barrier. The tall figure stepped back, its presence somehow less threatening now. I could see pain etched into its shadowy face, and I felt a flicker of sympathy. "Help us," the figure breathed again, this time with more urgency. "Help you how?" I responded, dread clawing at my thoughts. I didn't have the answers. I barely even understood the questions. But the circle's glow intensified, engulfing me in heat. I felt pulled into it, as if the very center was a portal to another realm. The whispers escalated, clamoring in my ears. "Jake!" they cried, each voice a different pitch of despair. Instinctively, I took a step back, nearly falling over the mirror that lay shattered at my feet. It felt like an anchor, reminding me of everything that had just happened. I couldn't let this continue. Then I saw it, a shape forming within the circle. It was clouded at first, but then it sharpened, revealing a face I recognized. A face from an old family photo, long buried in a dusty box. My heart raced. "Mom!" I gasped, taking another daring step forward. "Jake, we need you to break the cycle," the figure whispered, reaching out. The pulse of the symbols intensified, and I felt myself drawn closer, hitching on every word she spoke. "What cycle?" I urged, my vision blurring as the light around me morphed into pulsating energy. But before she could reply, the ground shook violently, the figures shifting and stumbling as if caught in a raging storm. I was losing my grip. "No, no!" I shouted, panic spilling from my lips. Everything went dark. The pulse faded, and I was thrown backward, colliding with something solid. A voice echoed in the void, distant but filled with urgency. "Jake, you must wake up!" My heart raced, terror gripping me in its cold hands. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then I remembered. "Help us." I needed to say it, but the words wouldn't come. Then a blinding flash illuminated the darkness for just an instant. I spotted the tall figure, still looming, its mouth moving as if trying to speak again, but the shadows swallowed the light. I pressed my back against whatever I was against, trembling. I had to find out what was happening to me. I had to break free. And deep down, I knew it had something to do with the mirror. I took a shuddering breath. Whatever was lurking in the shadows, it was only just beginning. I don't know how long I was in that void, but when I finally opened my eyes, everything around me was vague and unfamiliar. The floor beneath me felt cold and clammy, and the sharp tang of wet earth filled my nostrils. Struggling to push myself up, I blinked against the brightness of a full moon filtering through the trees. I was back in the woods where I worked as a park ranger, but something felt terribly different now. I was alone, at least I thought I was. I could hear rustling nearby, heavy breaths weaving through the silence. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky and unsure. No answer came, just the eerie sounds of branches creaking. I shifted to stand, glancing around cautiously. The trees were tall and oppressive in the night, their twisted forms casting long shadows that stretched and twisted in the moonlight. The sound seemed to be coming from deeper in the woods, where thick brush tangled, hindering my view. A distant snap echoed through the air, and I found myself holding my breath. There was something in there. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been in the circle, whatever was connected to those symbols, had followed me back. A shadow darted from behind a thick tree, quick and erratic. I felt a surge of instinctual fear. "Who's there?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. Then I saw it again, a glimpse of a figure, its outline shrouded in the dim light. It wasn't just a random animal, it was human. Instinct took over, and I took off running through the underbrush, heart pounding in my chest. "Jake!" The voice was faint but unmistakably there, calling my name. My feet found rhythm, but my mind was elsewhere, ensnared in confusion. Was it my mom? I pushed aside branches, ducking low to maneuver through the thick foliage, desperate to reach the source of the voice. "Where are you?" I shouted, hoping against hope that she'd respond. Then it happened. A flash of light erupted around me, blinding for a moment. I stumbled, and when I opened my eyes, I was back at the symbols again, the glowing circle pulsing with an intensity that felt like it was alive. The figures were back too, their faces twisted in pain, mouths open in silent screams. "Jake, you must help us!" they cried, their voices overlapping in a haunting echo that rattled my bones. "Help you with what?" I yelled back, panicking. I was caught in the same conundrum all over again. Suddenly the ground beneath me began to shake, the whispers rising in pitch. I fell to my knees, scrabbling to grasp some solid ground. I glanced up, and there she was, my mom, standing within the circle, reaching out to me. "Jake, the mirror is a key. You have to face what lies within." Before I could respond, the darkness surged around me, swallowing her. I could feel the cold grip of fear wrapping around me once more. I knew I needed to confront whatever evil had taken root here. But what would that mean for me? I wasn't ready for any more supernatural surprises. With no answers and my heart racing, I stood back up, steeling myself. As I took a deep breath, I spotted a glimmering fragment amidst the shadows. A piece of the shattered mirror? It might be my only chance. But as I moved toward it, I sensed a presence shifting behind me. Somebody, or something, was watching me. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my gut. This was far from over. I blinked, trying to clear my head as I turned to face the presence. The air felt charged, electric, and I could almost hear the shift in energy around me. The darkness seemed to pulse like a living thing, and I wondered if I'd actually imagined the rustling I had heard moments before. "Who's there?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. Silence answered me, thick and suffocating. I was alone again, or at least I thought so. I focused on the piece of the mirror, drawing strength from the light it emitted. Maybe it was the key. I had to reach it. Just as I took a step toward it, a low growl rumbled from the shadows, sending a shiver down my spine. I froze, heart racing. The sound was primal and guttural, something that no human could produce. My gut told me to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the fragment. "I need that," I said, more to myself than anyone else. If it could offer answers, or at least some kind of safety, it was worth the risk. I shifted my weight and started creeping forward. Each crunch of leaves beneath my feet felt echoing in the stillness. I forced myself to breathe steadily, but that growl reverberated through my bones, reminding me of the danger that lurked just out of sight. Then, in a flash, a figure burst from the darkness. My instincts kicked in. I bolted in the opposite direction, clutching the air in desperation. As branches whipped against me, panic surged. Is this how it ends? Running from the shadows? I stumbled, but managed to regain my footing. I glanced back. Nothing was there. The woods were still once more, but I could sense a chill in the air that wasn't just from fear. A low hum began to rise, vibrating in my chest. I kept running, needing to put distance between me and whatever that was. "Jake, this way!" My mother's voice echoed again, clearer now, as if she were calling from just beyond the trees. I veered toward the sound, hoping it would lead me to her. As I raced forward, I spotted the glowing circle ahead of me, a beacon of light amid the terror. My heart leapt. Maybe all of this was connected. But as I approached, the light flickered violently, casting odd shadows that danced erratically. My breath hitched in my throat. The air around me thickened again, pressing down as a crushing weight. Suddenly, the mirror fragment flew from the ground and hovered in front of me, glowing fiercely. "You must make a choice. The time is now." It echoed, a cacophony of voices melding together. The realization hit me hard. This was no ordinary mirror. A shadow loomed behind me, taking shape as a monstrous figure. It was human-like but distorted, its eyes glowing like embers. My breath caught in my throat. I had to choose, to face it head-on or risk everything by grasping the mirror and turning it towards the figure. The figure lunged. I had only moments to decide. It all felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Then everything went dark. I gasped for air, and then I jolted awake. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was lying on the cold forest floor, branches digging into my back. Everything felt hazy, but I pushed myself up and scanned my surroundings. Darkness pressed in, but my eyes quickly found the glowing fragment of the mirror, still hovering ominously in front of me. It pulsed with an otherworldly light, filling the shadows with an eerie glow. Instinctively, I recoiled from the mirror. Memories of the monstrous figure flooded my mind. Had it been real, or just a fleeting nightmare? I had to move, but I wasn't sure which way was safe. I took a deep breath, tasting the damp earth in the air, and stood up, shaking off the disorientation. "Mom?" I called out, my voice echoing through the trees, slightly steadier now. No answer came back, only the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. Had I imagined her calling me? My gut twisted with worry, but I couldn't stay here. The whisper of danger still tingled on my skin. I crept toward where I'd last seen the flickering light, my heart pounding in my chest. What if the figure was still lurking nearby? I reminded myself that fear was only a temporary state. The mirror had told me I had a choice, but what did that mean? I needed answers. As I pushed forward, I noticed that the woods were alive with sounds. Like murmurs from an unseen crowd, a chorus of whispers floated through the trees. Shadows shivered in the periphery of my vision. They danced, flickered, then vanished as quickly as they appeared. My nerves were on high alert. That's when I saw it. At the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged from behind the largest tree. I froze, breath catching in my throat. This one was smaller, more human-like. It stepped into the light, and my stomach dropped. It was a girl, about my age, with wild hair and eyes as bright as the stars. She looked lost, just like me. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice tremulous. "They're coming!" A wave of urgency washed over me. We needed a plan. "Who's coming?" I asked, taking a careful step toward her. "The shadows," she whispered, her expression a mix of fear and desperation. "They want to trap us here. We have to go." Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet shook. The air grew heavy, and the wind howled like a beast, throwing debris around us. The shadows thickened, pouring in from the edges of the clearing. I felt bile rise in my throat. I looked at the girl beside me. "We need to grab the mirror." She nodded, and together we dashed toward it, but a dark shape materialized in front of us, blocking our path. It became clear. The figure I'd seen before had returned, its glowing eyes zeroing in on us. "No!" I shouted, but the shadow surged forward, and I felt the ground give way beneath me. My legs buckled and I fell, tumbling into a swirling darkness. I landed hard, the ground beneath me shifting like quicksand. My breath hitched in my throat as I was swallowed by the darkness. The weight of panic pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I rolled over, trying to find solid ground, but it felt like I was floating in an abyss. "Caitlin!" I heard the girl's voice echoing from somewhere in the void. "Caitlin, where are you?" "Over here," I shouted, my voice trembling. "Stay close." Suddenly, a sliver of light broke through the dark. It flickered and spun around me, illuminating sharp edges and twisted features, but I couldn't tell if it was friend or foe. I crawled toward the brightness, fighting against the pull of shadows that tugged at my limbs. The light pulsed, and the girl appeared beside me, her silhouette sharp against the backdrop of darkness. "We have to keep moving," she urged, grabbing my arm. I nodded, my heart racing. Together, we sprinted toward the light, every stride feeling heavier. The world shifted again. The shadows swirled, forming grotesque shapes. I could hear their whispers clearer now, a cacophony of indecipherable words that clawed at my mind. Fear gripped me, but I forced myself to focus on the girl. "Do you know where we're going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "The mirror," she shouted. "We need to reach it before they take us." We zigzagged through the darkness, dodging the curling shadows that reached for us. Every step felt like a race against time. "What are those things?" I gasped, glancing over my shoulder. The darkness was alive, twisting like writhing creatures. "They are the lost," she said, her eyes wide and frantic. "Those who have come here before. They whisper because they want us to join them." A shiver ran down my spine. I didn't want to end up like them, trapped forever. The light flickered again, bouncing off what looked like the world's most distorted glass. It was the mirror. "There it is!" I yelled, a rush of hope igniting in my chest. We dashed forward, but the shadows thickened, forming a wall just before we could reach the glowing fragment. "Caitlin!" The girl's voice cut through the noise. "We have to push through!" With every ounce of strength, I ran at the darkness, feeling the pulse of the mirror pulling me closer. I couldn't let fear win. We were almost there. An ear-splitting howl erupted from the shadows, and I felt a cold grip wrap around my ankle, dragging me back. I screamed, fighting against the force. "Let go!" Just when I thought they would pull me under, something shifted. The light from the mirror surged, enveloping the shadows. The grip around me loosened, and I stumbled forward. The girl grabbed my hand as we fell through the light together. Then everything went white. I blinked, and a new world unfolded around me. We stood on the edge of a vast chasm, the mirror hovering between us and the darkness. I could hear the shadows still whispering, echoing what felt like distant cries. "What just happened?" I gasped, taking in the surreal landscape. "That was just the beginning," the girl said, her voice trembling. "We haven't escaped yet." Questions swirled in my mind, but before I could ask, a shadow stretched across the ground, creeping closer. My heart sank. The chase was far from over. The shadows continued to ripple, their forms shifting as if testing the limits of the chasm. The girl and I stood rigid, our eyes darting around as the unsettling whispers grew louder. It felt like they were trying to invade my thoughts, wrapping around my sanity. "We need to move," I said, trying to steady my voice, but the tremor betrayed my fear. "Where do we go?" She pointed to a narrow path that twisted along the edge of the chasm. "We have to follow this. It will lead us away." We stepped carefully, the ground beneath us feeling unstable, as if it might crumble at any moment. The air was thick, charged with something I couldn't identify, danger, or maybe despair. Every rustle, every creak of stone sent shivers coursing through me. As we moved, the darkness behind us seemed to pulse, racing to close the gap. I glanced back, and my stomach dropped. A swarm of shadows erupted from the depths, swirling like a dark storm. Their whispers became frantic, as if urging each other forward. "We're not going to make it," I gasped, panic clawing at my throat. "Don't look back," the girl shouted, and her grip on my arm tightened as she pulled me forward. We hurried along the ledge, and my thoughts raced. There had to be something we could do. My mind went back to the mirror. If there was a way in, maybe there was a way out too. But the desperation clung to me like the cold air. Then just ahead, I spotted a glimmer of light. "What's that?" I pointed, hope sparking to life within me. The girl squinted, her expression torn between hope and wariness. "It could be a trick, or it could be a way out." "Let's check it out," I urged. Before she could protest, I moved faster toward the light. As we drew closer, the path began to incline sharply. The walls of the chasm closed in, squeezing like a vice. The shadows shifted dangerously, scrambling to catch up. "Caitlin, wait!" she shouted, but adrenaline drowned out her warning. I stumbled forward, determined to reach that light. When I finally got to the source, my heart sank. It wasn't a way out. It was another mirror, shimmering with a soft glow but cracked across the surface, jagged edges reflecting distorted images of us. "Look!" I shouted. But just as I did, a shadow lunged from behind. It collided with me, sending me sprawling. I landed hard, breath knocked out of me right at the base of the mirror. The girl screamed. She was held back by a steady stream of shadows, reaching for her with desperate hands. "Caitlin, get up!" I pushed myself onto my knees, glancing up at the mirror. It seemed to shimmer more as the shadows closed in. Then my eyes widened. I could see glimpses of places I recognized, home, my school, my neighborhood, as if this mirror held portals to the world I left behind. "Caitlin!" The girl's voice snapped me back to reality. I realized this might be our chance. If this mirror could show us the way, maybe it could help us escape. My heart raced, but I had no time to waste. "Hold on!" I yelled, reaching out toward the mirror. But before I could grasp it, the air shifted. A low growl rumbled from the shadows as they lunged, clawing at the cracks in the mirror. The last thing I saw was a hand, a shadowy hand reaching for me, desperation in its grip, and then it all burst into darkness again. When I awoke, I found myself lying on soft grass, the sweet scent of cedar and pine filling the air. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting flickering patterns on the ground. I sat up, heart racing, confused. Was I back in the park? Had it all been a nightmare? I scanned my surroundings. Everything looked familiar, yet eerily quiet. No more whispers or shadowy figures creeping along the edges of my vision. Maybe this was my chance to escape whatever darkness had clung to me in those woods. Fighting through the fog of confusion, I pushed myself to stand. As I did, a sharp ache shot through my legs, like a reminder of everything I'd just experienced. That's when I saw it. A broken piece of the mirror lying among the leaves, glinting in the dappled sunlight. I hesitated, thinking back to the visions it showed me, the pleading faces of those trapped. Did it mean I wasn't truly free? I reached down, picking up the shard. Holding it felt like grasping a fragment of my own soul. Warmth coursed through my fingers, and I was flooded with a rush of memories, faces of the lost who'd tried to communicate, the desperate cries for help. As I gripped it tightly, the world around me shimmered briefly, then settled back into place. The echoes of the shadows still lingered at the back of my mind, questioning, never resolved. I thought of that girl who had been with me in the dark. Would she ever escape? Had the darkness truly let go of me? or was it merely waiting for a chance to pull me back in? Taking a deep breath, I tucked the mirror shard into my pocket and glanced around for a way out. The sun was higher now, illuminating the familiar trails of Cedar Hollow Park. I began to walk, trying to ignore the sense of being watched. Though the forest felt still, a part of me remained alert, expecting shadows to stretch toward me from behind every tree. As I reached the park's entrance, a chill brushed against my skin. I stopped, looking back at the woods that had drawn me in with their beauty and terror. I would never be the same after this, and deep down, I knew I would still hear those whispers sometimes, especially in the quiet moments of the night. Did they truly want help, or were they simply part of the woods, entwined with its spirit? I couldn't tell. I felt a knot tightening in my gut with the question of whether those figures intended to guide or trap me. I took a final glance over my shoulder before leaving Cedar Hollow Park behind. The sunlight was beautiful, a stark contrast to the memories of darkness that seeped into the edges of my mind. I moved forward, unsure of where I'd go next, or if I'd ever truly escape the pull of that place. One thing was clear. It had changed me in ways I could never explain. With each step, I felt the weight of the unknown trailing behind me, a mix of unease and curiosity stirring within. I guess I'll never know the full truth of what happened in those woods. But I had survived, and that had to be enough. For now.